So for families that have been here before, which it's totally okay to ask them, like, is this your first time or have you been here before? I always try by last name. So we're going to just use Emily, for example. So they tell you their last name, and then you type it in.
Jen, it's kind of cut off.
Oh, cut off?
Well, like part of the screen is cut
off. Oh, okay, hold on. I think that's because I did something weird with the sharing. Hold on, let me see. Okay, here it is. I just want to share my whole screen. Did that work?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So you type in here, you'd ask them their last name and then type in their last name. And then you can either hit enter or you can hit find. And it may go a little slow. Oh, it tells me my internet is unstable. Okay, so because there are multiple people with the last name King, they're all up here typically by either whoever the head of household is, whether it's the father or the mother's name. But you'll see over here under family members, it'll list their children. So say Emily came up and I asked, or Emily's mom, and I asked their last name, they said King. And then you can either just ask for their name. I typically just say, what are your children's names? Just to make it easier, because sometimes people get offended if it's under the wife or husband or whatever. So you can click as you go down the name, and I'm using my finger to point on the screen, not realizing that you can't see my finger. As you click down, the child's name will change. So they told me her name was Emily, so I would click down until I saw Emily. And then so I know that's the family that I want, so I'd go ahead and hit OK. And then,
this is for people already signed in.
Yeah, this is for people
already in the system.
Yeah, for people who, and since we only have the one check-in station now, you'll get a lot of these in general. People who already signed in, because a lot of times that kiosk specifically by the door stops working on Sunday for some reason, so they'll end up coming up. But then you can ask them, if it's first service, ask them if they plan on staying for both services. Obviously, if it's already second, just go ahead and click it. But you'll click the one that you want. So if you do first, you click just first. But if you want to do both, you can click both. And then all you do is hit finish. And when you hit finish, it'll immediately print their badges, is what's supposed to happen. So let's say that Dawn King comes up and tells me that she's checking in her baby, Emily. So I would type in King, I would hit find, and then she told me her name's Emily, so I'm going to scroll down until I find Emily, and then I see that's Emily. So I click OK. And because she's a baby, I'm going to want an extra badge. So I already printed these. If I had this hooked up to my printer and I already hit finish, you would not be able to check these anymore. They'd be grayed out with a check mark. So pretend that they're grayed out with a check mark. She's already been checked in. She's already got her original badge. You would come down here and click additional badge, and then that would bring up this screen. If she was already checked in, this little box would also be down here, and you would click that, and then you just click hit finish, and it would print out an extra one. So now she has her child badge, a parent badge, and an additional child badge, because in the nursery, they need a badge to go with their bags. So we always print out 2 when they're babies and going on the baby side. And then even if they're 3-year-olds, a lot of times we'll print out 2 because they come with book bags and stuff. Does anyone have questions about that part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you need to do that in 2 separate steps to get the additional badge, or can you do it when you got the first badges?
You can do it before you check them in. So like if you're here, I don't know if they need to already be checked. I think you can check it. Andrea, you can correct me if you know differently. You can check them, hit additional. I don't know. I
think that we did. I
feel like you can. Yeah. But I would have to do it to remember if you could. But you can always try, and if it doesn't work, just get out of it and pull it back up. I typically just get out of it and pull it back up just because I think it has to be checked in order for you to print an additional badge. Let me see this.
You'd have to find their name again.
Yeah, well, let's just see what happens. Okay, so yeah, you can. Good.
Okay.
Good. Look at that. That saves us so much time. I've been doing it wrong this whole time. So yeah, as long as they're checked, then when you hit additional badge, that'll be there. So you can print that first, then just make sure I would print it and then maybe go back and hit finish. Just, oh no.
Well, there was one that said print all, so I don't know if that
Yeah, you can try that one. I've never used print all, so I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, and it's going to tell me now.
I mean, I use print all, or I don't know, we use select all and then print and finish when we use the kiosk by the door.
Yeah, I would try it from that screen and see what happens.
Yeah.
It's harder since I don't have it actually hooked up to my printer, but does anyone else have questions about people who already attend or have been to Cornerstone?
That looks pretty intuitive, I think.
Yeah, it's not too complicated, especially once you start doing it.
Friendly.
I will say one thing about that is that sometimes, so we have a family who's been coming for like 3 or 4 weeks, and it took up until like week 3 for their information to actually get in the system. So if, that was just because sometimes those little white cards that they fill out get lost and we don't actually get it into the computer. So those are really important to make sure that you always, anytime it's a new family and they're not in the system, regardless of like if they're one-time visitors, you're going to hand them one of those white cards that are at the kiosk station that says like new guests, and it says like name and all that stuff, name, age of your child and of them and their information. And they don't have to fill it. I mean, if some people are very like cautious about their information, so they don't have to fill it out, but it's just a way for us to put them in the system so that we can come back to them. Because if we don't have that, then it's going to have to be a new visitor every single time, which is annoying. And they can't use the kiosk until they're in the system. They can't check themselves in.
So we can't add them to the system.
We can't. No, the way to add them is not a part. It's a part of ACS, which is what this is, but it's not a part of like the sign-in process. So even I know how to, but I don't add them in. I always give them to Ananda because she also gives them to Sean, and Sean sends them a letter as well as us.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the family you say we just had that was there like 4 weeks and their stuff wasn't in the system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you have them fill out a white card every time?
I did. Typically, it doesn't take 3 weeks. It's typically 2. Because it kind of depends who's also the one having them fill out the card. Since I saw them twice on that second time, I knew who they were. So I made sure that next Monday that they got a card. So I guess the best way, make them fill out the card, ask them to fill it out, even if they don't put any other information other than the people's names, and then just make a note on it and find either me or Andrea before the end of Sunday to let us know so we can make sure we get it to Ananda. Because a lot of times they just kind of go missing. So some people get annoyed about it, but I mean, that's the only way if people are ever like super, like either super frustrated or they're in a hurry, then you can just do the one-time visitor and just forget about it. But I always try to, and people are typically pretty good about it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions before I show you the visitor? Okay. So for visitor, you're not going to type any name in here because they're not in the system. And even if they tell you like, oh, I've been here years ago, whatever, you can try to search them, but if it doesn't come up, this is what you'll do. So you'll click this bottom left. This is the only one you're really going to ever need to, left, sorry. This is the only one you're ever going to really need to use. So you'll click one-time visitor. And then this is for the child. You'll type in their first name, and then you'll type in the child's last name, and then you'll type in the parent's first and last name, whichever is the one talking to you. It doesn't matter if it's the mom or the dad. And then before you do anything else, you have to come over here and hit next number, and it'll just assign them a badge number. I try to always ask if they have any allergies, just because if they're 5 and under, we do give them goldfish. So if they did, this is where you would type it. Emily, because you're allergic to everything. There you go. So you would type it there. I put a bunch of stars because anything you type in the notes, when their badges print out, it's going to be underneath their name in like all caps. So their teachers should be able to see it. And then this is where you'll need to look. If you're in first service, you don't need to change this at all. But if it's for second service only, you'll need to go in and change it. we're going to pretend like she's coming for both services. So the first thing you do when it's a visitor is hand them that white card and get them to start filling it out. And then you can either wait till they're done, which a lot of times if I notice, I try to glance down and look at their writing as they're writing. If I notice that their names that are like kind of hard to pronounce, like we have a lot of Hispanic children coming, and so sometimes their names are hard, and I don't want to have to be like, can you spell that over and over again? So I just wait for them to finish. But if I can see that it's something simple, I'll go ahead and just start typing it in. But I always have them fill it out just to speed the process up. But so as they're writing, sometimes I'll be like, and what's your name to the kids? And they'll tell me their name, and then I'll ask either them or their parents their age. And then you'll look down here at the different classes and say Emily's 3 today. And then you just click this little arrow. And then if she is staying for both services, you will have to drop that down and then also click it over for that one. And then you would just hit print, and it'll print Emily's badge and her parent badge. But when you do this, so if they had like 5 kids, you do individually have to go in each time, hit print, hit one-time visitor, type in second kid, hit print, hit one-time visitor, type in third kid. And so they will have like 5 parent badges for that first time. And when they have a bunch of kids and they do get a bunch of parent badges, I always take a pen and write the name down of the kid who matches the number, just because sometimes it's hard for them to, during pickup, try to search through their many tickets to see which child they need to get. So I write the kid's name down, and then I let them know that because they filled out the white card, the next time they come, it'll all be on one. So that's another incentive for them to fill out the white card so that it's not a bunch of different badges that they're carrying around. Does anybody, well, let me show you this, and then I can see if you have questions. So say I'm going to hit print. I don't know what's going to happen, but it should save it in the system because I do. So I just printed out Emily's visitor badge, and then say Emily was actually a baby, then I'm going to go, you will need to do reprint visitor badge, and every visitor of the day will be there. So you would just look for the name you just did, you would click it, and then you can either say reprint individual, which would just do Emily, or you can reprint family and get the badge again as well if you needed it. So you won't ever use these top 2, but you will use these bottom 2, and this one only if the visitors have babies. Now, do you have any questions? Yes, Andrea?
So will you go back to the screen where you were adding somebody in there? I saw something I was curious about.
This one right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
All right. What is the save/add family member? Does that allow us to add more people under one?
Yeah,
I've never had a chance to play with that because people are always up there, so.
Oh, yeah.
Her mom's Dawn Rourke.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Emily. There's so many Dawns. Okay, let me show you this. This is a good point. So sometimes I forget, and a lot of people forget, and then they get kind of flustered with what's going on up there, to hit this button. And if you try to add somebody to a class without hitting it, it's going to tell you that you need to hit it. So anytime that comes up, just make sure you just click that and then try again. I forget it all the time. All right, let's see. Save, add family member.
Oh, look. See, all you got to put first name.
So I can't guarantee, though, that it won't. Well, I guess not, because it says page number. So it should only print out one. That's so much more convenient.
Add another kid's name. Yeah, put that.
Oh, messed up. You have a sister named Karen now.
Let's see.
Yeah, so I can't test it out by printing it because I don't have anything hooked up.
It does look like it would be a lot easier, huh?
Yeah, but I'm thinking, so good to note, everybody. That is how you add more people on one badge. I'm glad we're doing this together.
I've never noticed that before, Jen. So.
I haven't either. And 2, I was never really trained either. It was kind of just like, this is how it is, and now go for it. And so I had no idea. But that's good to know. So something else that may occur while you're checking somebody in is, let's see if it's going to let me. We'll just say print. Okay. One thing, So it's probably, let me think. I guess, let me get out of this one. It happens more on the kiosk one. Okay, so let me show you this real quick too, I guess, while we're here. So I'm going to exit out all the way. The password for the ACS that's with the computer is next to the like station. So it says like password, so you guys would know. So if it crashes, which it does frequently on Sundays when the internet's bad, you would pull up, this is what it looks like, and you would pull that up on the desktop. It says on demand, but the little app says ACS. So you pull that up. You would type in the Cornerstone information. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it is written. I know, is it Seastone Nursery?
Yeah, Seastone Nursery, and then praise to Jesus.
So right now it's praise to Jesus, but it's written on the sticky note, so you'll see it. It changes every couple months too. And then you'll click sign in, and it's gonna probably go a little slow, but we'll give it a second.
But 9 times out of 10, Addie and I, that's what Addie usually, that's her job.
Yeah.
Make sure everything's logged in.
So it'll definitely already be logged in when you get there, but it does crash often. Not often, but on Sundays apparently the way it works is like we all use, like a bunch of churches use a central hub for ACS. And so when there's a lot of volume going on, it makes it crash more. Okay, so this will be the screen that you see when you log in. The only 2 buttons that you need to know, this one right here is if you had to reset the kiosks. And then this is the one we would go to, ACS People Suite is where you're gonna go to use it on the computer, like the big computers. And once it opens, you're gonna go right here where it says enter and post attendance, and you're gonna say check-in/out. And then you're gonna hit the little blue arrow, and that's gonna, it'll come up to this. You'd hit Kids Sunday. You don't have to change anything else, and hit OK. And then that's gonna bring up where we were, where you type in the names and the visitors and stuff. But some problem people have sometimes is, so let's see, I gotta get out of this to get there. I'm trying to go into the one with the kiosk. Hold on. So some people who are visitors, and then sometimes it just happens on our end when for some reason they get taken out of a roster to a class. So a lot of times it's when they move up. So like when we have 5-year-olds move into the 6-year-old class and stuff like that, they'll get taken out of their roster. So when their families go to do the kiosk, it comes up as like weird, asking you to put it in the roster. So I'm gonna try to find one that's doing that so I can show you. Let's see.
Tucker moved up from 3 to 4. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see if it may do it.
Yeah, he still is.
So yeah, that says age 3. I'm gonna see if you guys can do it. So I don't know if it's only doing this because I have when a parent does the kiosk, does move come up as an option? Anna, do you know have you ever seen move before?
Can you go back so I can see the screen?
Yeah, like that.
I don't think so.
Okay. So I was gonna say, but if so, too, some things that we do sometimes is I'll go into the age 3 and take Tucker out, and then I'll add him into the preschool class, but the preschool class, Ananda has to go in and like update it, and sometimes she doesn't update it before Sundays happen. So when that happens, it would say, I think when you would just see it, it would say like unable to sign in or whatever. So when that happens, you would have to go back into, like the parent would have to go to the nursery center to redo their child in the right age group, if that makes sense. Like you would have to go back to how we just did and assign them to a class.
I think one time when the boys had moved up before they had moved to the 6-year-old group, in between one of their classes, we came in one Sunday when they moved and they just weren't in there anymore.
Yeah.
They just weren't there. So we had to go back to the center, the kiosk, and, at the kiosk, but to the computer, and they had to re-add them that morning.
Yeah. So
Which evidently happened to a lot of people that week because there was a long line.
Yes. I was going to say too, when I do update the rosters, it typically, like, I update them throughout or whatever. And then before, Ananda hasn't had to do it yet because I haven't updated them yet since she started working. But when it was Hannah, she would do it like once a month. So then all those changes were made all at once. So it does knock all these people out. So it's just good to tell people, because some people get a little concerned when they're like, why am I not in here anymore? So just knowing that it's because your child probably moved up, but if not, sometimes, so for whatever reason, sometimes ACS will like save multiple people. So on our attendance, Jackson Smith, there's multiple Jackson Smiths, even though there's only one. And so every time I delete him, whichever one his parents sign him in as is always the one I delete. So then they always have to get re-added back in. So when things like that happen, it's just easy to explain to people that it's not that we like kicked your kid out, but that the computer just does weird things sometimes. But I think that's everything that you guys would need to know. If you guys have any other questions.
How would we sign? We would sign him in like we did the first person?
Yeah.
The very first time? Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Well, it's probably not going to do anything weird because, yeah, so sometimes what'll happen if I knocked him out of a class too, when I do go to click on it, it'll pop up and ask me what class to put him in.
Right.
So, and then too, like this, you could do it this way. If you know that the kid moved up, if they tell you, you can change it like this too. So, and then this is another good point to point out right here. Anytime you add them into a new roster, it's going to ask you these two questions. And so if they're new, if they're like they're visiting, you do prospect, but if their parents are members, you do member. If you don't know, it doesn't really matter. And then position, just student. And then you'll hit OK, and then he'll be added into that class. But a warning will pop up. If I had taken Tucker out already, then when we go to click in, it would come up and ask me to change it. Mm-hmm. So you can change it automatically by yourself, or when you go to log in, it'll ask you to do it. If they're having problems on the kiosk, when they come to you, it will ask you. If for some reason it doesn't and it's being super weird and you're like, then I just automatically go and just do the one-time visitor because it's easy just to get it out of the way.
Right. Okay.
And I would say don't ever feel embarrassed to ask people to spell their name over and over again, because I'm a little dyslexic. So when people are spelling to me and they go really fast, I have to be like, look, I need you to do it like one letter at a time because this is too quick for me.
Jen?
Yeah.
Since we're talking about the check-in process, can we go over about with the nursery and stuff, kind of what happens with the babies and?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Like
Yeah, and there's another thing I wanted to say. Hold on, brain. Oh, so this is really important. This will be for you guys at the check-in station, but it'll also be if you're in a classroom elsewhere. When a parent comes to pick up their kids and they show you their parent badge or whatever, always make sure that the number on the badge lines up with the number on the child's ticket. And if they don't have a badge, they have to show you an ID, regardless of if the kid is like, no, that's my grandma, because we've had somebody come to pick up the kids before who they were not supposed to have the children. So it's always good. And even if you know them, because one thing they taught us at a conference is there was like a long line of people and the pastor was coming to pick up their kids, but behind them was a new family. And the pastor was like, I don't have my ticket. And the person working was like, well, let me see your ID. And they were kind of laughing or whatever. But she showed them their ID to pick up the kid. But they were just saying, like, if they would have been like, oh, I don't have my badge, and then the person just handed the kid over to them anyways, it looks bad for visitors who are like, well, my kid, what's the point in this badge system if they're just going to hand my kids to people anyways? So people can get frustrated. I've sent an email out to all the parents and told them that this was a little bit ago, and I put in our newsletter, that if they didn't have their badges, they would have to show their ID. And so some people thought it was funny, purposely didn't give me their badge so they could show me their ID because they thought it was funny. But yeah, it's just always good to ask for that. If they don't have their ID, then I would say just call me and Andrea and we'll make an executive decision. Obviously, we're not going to like withhold somebody's child, but it's always better to be safe.
Are the parents' names on the badges?
They are, yes. Typically,
Okay.
right? It's underneath your child's name, yeah.
Because I'm just like, if the child has a different last name than the parent. You know.
Yeah.
It'll still have the parents different, like, because do
Okay.
you know when she was checking them in, like it had their first name?
I just couldn't
and
remember if the parent's name was on the badge or not.
Yeah, it is. I think I want to say new visitors, I'm not 100%, but I feel like it is. And if not, I feel like I'll definitely have Stephen look at it to make sure that it is in the future. I know for sure that new badges typically say visitor on them. One other thing I say too is just to make sure you highlight if they have any allergies. A lot of them have allergies already in the system. So when it prints out, you just highlight the allergy thing so that the teachers can see it. And then, so when it comes to check-in, what Andrea was talking about, when you're working that nursery, since that's our only like check-in station now, other than the kiosks, you're gonna be the one who's you're gonna talk to the family, encourage them to do the line. I would always say what I do, because people will sometimes blatantly ignore it. People who are regulars will ignore it. So you just I only go to the people who are next in line. And if other people cut in, I just kind of ignore them and keep doing line. I ask them politely if they could get in line, because our line system has been working really well, and it has definitely helped the flow of traffic in the hallway. But your job is to check in, and then also like when it comes to pickup time, you're gonna turn your back to the nursery room or the 3-year-old room and just tell them you're ready for so-and-so. And then the workers will go get the kid and bring it to you. But we're gonna tell all of our youth and stuff and everyone working that's going to be in our nursery training that they do not leave the classroom, because sometimes we have nursery workers who really love the children and they want to be the ones to pass it off to the parents, but it's too many people in that tiny space. So we want our kiosk workers to be the only ones with like hand-on-hand contact with the parents. So also too, we need all of our workers to help get children away from the gate. As the kiosk worker, that's not your responsibility. So if you have a bunch of kids huddled up crying, I'm not going to say like ignore them, but just make sure you're doing your job. And if the nursery workers, when we let them know, like that's their job to make sure the kids are back so that you're able to have that flow going better. And then when you holler in there to the nursery and tell them like, hey, I'm ready for Jackson, they should know, most of them know, but like I said, we're going to do a training for the nursery too, because we do have a lot of new nursery workers. In addition to the child, just to make sure that they also grab the bag. So you'll be giving the parent the child and the bag. You may need to remind sometimes, hopefully after we do the training, they'll remember, but you may need to remind them sometimes, be like, I need the bag too. But for the most part, a lot of them will go get the bag first and then go get the kit. And I always work in order. I don't always like pass. If there's like 3 parents and I know all of them are in the nursery, I will typically call all 3 names just to get them. Like I don't necessarily wait till the baby is all the way passed off to the first person before I go to the second person, because that just kind of takes even longer. So if you want to just, if you see them and just ask for the babies in the nursery, because sometimes there's a little bit of a lag for them to bring the kids in. Does anybody else have any other questions? And Andrea, did I miss anything about?
Just one more thing for the babies. We used to only do a sheet. There's a white sheet there that says like feeding and if they need to be fed or they need anything special. We're changing that to doing it for every infant. That way, even if they don't need anything, we want them to write on there, nothing needed. That way everyone gets used to looking at those sheets again, because I think they kind of got away from looking at those sheets. and we need to make sure we only feed them if they tell us to feed them. That'll be in the nursery training. But when you were helping check in, that is something you will ask them to do, is to please fill it out.
Yeah.
And Jen, on the visitor cards,
Mhm.
do you want them just to lay them? So say they get some new people, you want them just to leave them laid on the counter for us? Is that
Yeah,
right?
if you just leave them, don't put it. So the way the check-in system is now is there's these like black boxes that are hollow, and that's where they are. Don't put them back in there, but put them. Typically, what I do is the keyboard sit on top of that black box. I put it underneath the keyboard with like part of it sticking out, and then we come by and grab them either after Sunday or on Monday when we come in. But one thing about the nursery instructions, why it's important to, I would have everyone fill them out for children who are under 2. If they're 2, it's fine because they're going to have goldfish with their snack. But we've had workers who did not have instruction, but there were bottles in the bag, and so they gave the child a bottle, and they weren't supposed. That was their lunch, so they didn't have lunch for the day, so they had to, like, especially for moms who pump and stuff, it makes it harder. So just even if they're like, I don't have any instructions, I will say that's one thing that people, as we started doing that, have pushed back on more. But I'm like, I need you to write it down, because we can't do anything if you don't write it down. So just making sure they have them filled out, even if it's just like nothing.
Yeah.
So are those
every-
papers in that black box along with the little white cards, the visitors, so they're all right there together?
Well, extra copies are, but the papers sit on top. So the counter where there's like extra stuff on the counter where the monitors are. That's what they're called. Yeah. So they're on little clipboards with pins. So those are like typically the only things up there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then you'll hand that form, the little form with the ones that are under 2 that don't get snacks. So they'll take them on back there with them. So, and there's a little board that they put them on, a little magnetic board that's back there with the tiny babies. So,
Okay.
Hey Jen, I think we're gonna be cut off in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Feel free to ask. I can talk fast.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us.
And like I said, I've recorded this, so I'll send it in an email so you guys have it as backup too. The best way to learn it really is just by doing it. And then when it is your first time up there doing it, we always have somebody up there with you to help you, because it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but our parents are very gracious when it comes to dropping them off. So
I forgot people's last names. Like I hadn't done it in a while, and it was really busy. And someone I know really well walked up there, and I was like, I can't even think of your name right now. I mean, just know that happens. And Jen made me feel better, and she was like, no, that happens to me too. So
oh yeah. And one funny story before we leave, one time I couldn't remember somebody's last name, so I was like, thought I was going to be Sly, so I was like, oh, could you spell your last name for me again? Not just so that I like forgot it. And they're like, Smith, Smith, and I was like, oh, I felt so embarrassed. I was like, I know how to spell Smith, I just forgot your name. So it's always fine to ask them. And then the more you do it, the more you'll see people you know anyways, but the more it'll click with you. It's one of my favorite. I love being with the kids, but I love checking them in. I think it's so fun too, because you get to talk to the parents too.
Nicole,
cool.
do you enjoy it when you do it?
I do, yeah. Yeah. But this, I mean, I knew a lot of what you talked about, but a few things weren't new, so that was helpful. Like, if the system shuts down, I had no idea what to do, for example.
Well, good to see. And that's the good use we're going to get to do with these, is things we wanted to do, and it's a way to train, and we're all home anyway, so let's learn together, you know?
Yeah. So we didn't know how to do some of the stuff on there either.
Yeah, we just figured it out.
All right. Well, I pray that you guys all have a really great evening and a great rest of your weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.